It will help to distinguish two kinds of possibilities. Cosmic possibilities cover everything that ever exists, and are the different ways that the whole of reality might be. Only one such possibility can be actual, or be the one that obtains. Local possibilities are the different ways that some part of reality, or local world, might be. If some local world exists, that leaves it open whether other worlds exist. One cosmic possibility is roughly that every possible local world exists. This we can call the all worlds hypothesis. Another possibility, which might have obtained, is that nothing ever exists. This we can call the null possibility. In each of the remaining possibilities, the number of local worlds that exist is between none and all. There are countless of these possibilities, since there are countless combinations of possible local worlds. Of these different cosmic possibilities, one must obtain, and only one can obtain. So we have two questions: which obtains, and why? These questions are connected. If some possibility would be easier to explain, that may give us more reason to believe that this possibility obtains. This is how, rather than believing in only one Big Bang, we have more reason to believe in many. Whether we believe in one or many, we have the question why any Big Bang has occurred. Though this question is hard, the occurrence of many Big Bangs is not more puzzling than the occurrence of only one. Most kinds of thing or event have many instances. We also have the question why, in the Big Bang that produced our worlds, the initial conditions allowed for the complexity and life. If there has been only one Big Bang, this fact is also hard to explain, since it is most unlikely that these conditions merely happened to be right. If instead there have been many Big Bangs, this fact is easy to explain, since it is like the fact that, among countless planets, there are some whose conditions allow for life. Since belief in many Big Bangs leaves less that is unexplained, it is the better view. If some cosmic possibilities would be less puzzling than others, because their obtaining would leave less to be explained, is there some possibility whose obtaining would be in no way puzzling? Consider first the null possibility, in which nothing ever exists. To imagine this possibility, it may help to suppose first that all that ever existed was a single atom. We then imagine that even this atom never existed. Some have claimed that, if there had never been anything, there wouldn't have been anything to be explained. But that is not so. When we imagine how things would have been if nothing had ever existed, what we should imagine away are such things as living beings, stars, and atoms. There would still have been various truths, such as the truth that there were no stars or atoms, or that 9 is divisible by 3. We can ask why these things could have been true, and such questions may have answers. Thus we can explain why, even if nothing had ever existed, 9 would have been divisible by 3. There is no conceivable alternative. And we can explain why there would have been no such things as immaterial matter or spherical cubes. Such things are logically impossible. But why would nothing have existed? Why would there have been no stars or atoms, no philosophers or bluebell woods? We should not claim that if nothing had ever existed, there would have been nothing to be explained. But we can claim something less. Of all the cosmic possibilities, the null possibility would have needed the least explanation. As Leibniz pointed out, it is much the simplest and the least arbitrary, and it is the easiest to understand. It can seem mysterious, for example, how things could exist without their existence having some cause. But there cannot be a causal explanation of why the whole universe, or God, exists. The null possibility raises no such problem. If nothing had ever existed, that state of affairs would not have needed to be caused. Reality, however, does not take its least puzzling form. In some way or other, a universe has managed to exist. That is what can take our breath away. As Wittgenstein wrote, not how the world is the mystical, but that it is. Or, in the words of a thinker as unmystical as Jack Smart, that anything should exist at all does seem to me a matter of the deepest awe. Consider next the all-worlds hypothesis, which claims that every possible local world exists. Unlike the null possibility, this may be how things are. And it may be the next least puzzling possibility. This hypothesis is not the same as, though it includes, the many worlds hypothesis. On that more cautious view, the many other worlds have the same elements as our world, and the same fundamental laws, and differ only in such features as their constants and initial conditions. The all-worlds hypothesis covers every conceivable kind of world, and most of these other worlds would have very different elements and laws. If all these worlds exist, we can ask why they do. But compared with most other cosmic possibilities, the all-worlds hypothesis might leave less that is unexplained. For example, whatever the number of possible worlds that exist, we have the question, why that number? That question would have been least puzzling if the number that existed were none, and the next least arbitrary possibility seems to be that all these worlds exist. With every other cosmic possibility, we have a further question. If ours is the only world, we can ask, out of all the possible local worlds, why is this the one that exists? On any version of the many worlds hypothesis, we have a similar question. Why do these worlds exist with these elements and laws? But if all these worlds exist, there is no such further objection. It may be objected that, even if all possible worlds, in the local sense, exist, that does not explain why our world is as it is. But that is a mistake. If all these worlds exist, each world is as it is in the way in which each number is as it is. We cannot sensibly ask why 9 is 9. Nor should we ask why our world is the one it is, why it is this world. That would be like asking, why are we who we are? Or, why is it now the time that it is? Those, on reflection, are not good questions. Though the all-worlds hypothesis avoids certain questions, it is not as simple or unarbitrary as the null possibility. There may be no sharp distinction between worlds that are and are not possible. It is unclear what counts as a kind of world. And if there are infinitely many kinds, there is a choice between different kinds of infinity. Whichever cosmic possibility obtains, we can ask why it obtains. All that I have claimed so far is that, with some possibilities, this question would be less puzzling. Let us now ask, could this question have an answer? Might there be a theory that leaves nothing unexplained? It is sometimes claimed that God, or the universe, make themselves exist. But this cannot be true, since these entities cannot do anything unless they exist. On a more intelligible view, it is logically necessary that God or the universe exist, since the claim that they might not have existed leads to a contradiction. On such view, though it may seem conceivable that there might never have been anything, that is not really logically possible. Some people even claim that there may be only one coherent cosmic possibility. Einstein suggested that if God created our worlds, he might have had no choice about which world to create. If such a view were true, everything might be explained. Reality might be the way it is because there was no conceivable alternative. But for reasons that have been often given, we can reject such views. Consider next a quite different view. According to Plato, Plotinus, and others, the universe exists because its existence is good. Even if we are confident that we should reject this view, it is worth asking whether it makes sense. If it does, that may suggest other possibilities. This axiarchic view can take a theistic form. We might claim that God exists because his existence is good, and that the rest of the universe exists because God caused it to exist. But in that explanation, God, qua creator, is redundant. If God can exist because his existence is good, so can the whole universe. This may be why some theists reject the axiarchic view and insist that God's existence is a brute fact with no explanation. In its simplest form, this axiarchic view makes three claims. 1. It would be best if reality were a certain way. 2. Reality is that way. 3. 1 explains 2. 1 is an ordinary, evaluative claim, like the claim that it would be better if there was less suffering. The axiarchic view assumes, I believe rightly, that such claims can be, in a strong sense, true. 2 is an ordinary, empirical, or scientific claim, though of a sweeping kind. What is distinctive in this view is claim 3, according to which 1 explains 2. Can we understand this third claim? To focus on this question, we should briefly ignore the world's evils and suspend our other doubts about claims 1 and 2. We should suppose that, as Leibniz claimed, the best possible universe exists. Would it then make sense to claim that this universe exists because it is the best? That use of because, axiarchists should admit, cannot be easily explained. But even ordinary causation is mysterious. At the most fundamental level, we have no idea why some events cause others. And it is hard to explain what causation is. There are, moreover, non-causal senses of because and why, as in the claim that God exists because his existence is logically necessary. We can understand that claim, even if we think it false. The axiarchic view is harder to understand. But that is not surprising. If there is some explanation of the whole of reality, we should not expect this explanation to fit neatly into some familiar category. This extraordinary question may have an extraordinary answer. We should reject suggested answers which make no sense, but we should also try to see what might make sense. Axiarchy might be expressed as follows. We are now supposing that, of all the countless ways that the whole of reality might be, one is both the very best and is the way that reality is. On the axiarchic view, that is no coincidence. This claim, I believe, makes sense. And if it were no coincidence that the best way for reality to be is also the way that reality is, that might support the further claim that this is why reality is this way. This view has one advantage over the more familiar theistic view. An appeal to God cannot explain why the universe exists, since God would himself be part of the universe, or one of the things that exist. Some theists argue that, since nothing can exist without some cause, God, who is the first cause, must exist. As Schopenhauer objected, this argument's premise is not like some cab driver whom theists are free to dismiss once they have reached their destination. The axiarchic view appeals not to an existing entity, but to an explanatory law, since such a law would not itself be part of the universe. It might explain why the universe exists, and is as good as it could be. If such a law governed reality, we could still ask why it did, or why the axiarchic view was true. But in discovering this law, we would have made some progress. It is hard, however, to believe the axiarchic view. If, as it seems, there is much pointless suffering, our worlds cannot be part of the best possible universe. Some axiarchists claim that if we reject their view, we must regard the world's existence as a brute fact, since no other explanation could make sense. But that, I believe, is not so.